Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow good stories.
Our Rifton leapt out of the carriage with his sword already drawn. She began, gesturing wildly. He moved so quickly I couldn't even see when he pulled it out. Of course, Ulysses exclaimed. No one draws a sword faster than Lord Rifton. Maxi nodded earnestly and continued her performance. And then, he swung his sword, and with one clean strike, he sliced off the giant's arm just like cutting through sausage. Of course, his sword can even cut through a dragon's fire breath, so a giant monster is nothing. Maxi exclaimed, seizing the opportunity to exaggerate further. And then, blood sprayed everywhere like rain when the giant tried to lift its severed arm. Blood splattered everywhere like this. She mimicked the motion with dramatic hand gestures, lost in the theatrics of her own storytelling. Just as Maxi was fully engrossed in her tale, a dry voice cut through her performance. It took us 2 whole days to scrub that blood off, by the way. Maxi froze, her eyes wide with shock. Turning around, she saw no one. But when she peeked behind a tree, her face turned red as she spotted Ruth, crouched and scraping moss off the trunk. Her eyes widened further. What is he doing here? Without missing a beat, Ruth continued, we even considered repainting the white dragon crest to black after that mess. Bloodstains don't come off armor easily, you know. Ruth then glanced up at Maxi, smirking mischievously. So, you personally witnessed all of this during the journey, didn't you, my lady? Maxi stood frozen, completely speechless, her face now crimson. The 2 young guards, oblivious to her embarrassment, ran over and asked Ruth what he was doing. Ruth casually replied that he was working on an experimental potion at Maxi's request. One of the guards eagerly chimed in, my lady just told us how Lord Rifton killed 10 giants in the blink of an eye. Did you see that fight too, Sir Ruth? Ruth scratched his chin mockingly. 10 giants, huh? Maxi's heart nearly stopped, and her cheeks burned. She hadn't expected anyone else to hear her exaggerated tale. Ruth turned to her with a sly grin. I'm guessing the lady hasn't shared the story of the werewolf skirmish yet, has she? Maxi felt a wave of dread as the 2 guards gasped, their admiration growing. Ruth, enjoying himself, joined in the theatrics. Ah, the werewolf fight. That was something else. On our way back to Anatole, we were ambushed by a pack of werewolves. There were so many of them that their fur could have covered an entire mountain. Maxi wished the earth would swallow her whole as the guards' excitement peaked. Wow, my lady, can you tell us more about that battle? One of them asked. Feeling cornered, Maxi stammered awkwardly. Ruth stepped in with mock chivalry. Perhaps we shouldn't trouble the lady while she's so busy, he suggested, offering her an escape. Yes, that's right, Maxi exclaimed hastily. I don't have time to chat now. She turned to leave, desperate to flee her growing humiliation. As she moved away, Ruth casually called out, oh, before I forget, there's news for you, my lady. Maxi stopped in her tracks, nervous. And news? Ruth held up a piece of parchment. Lord Rifton used the castle's magical device to send this letter to my tower. He's planning to return as soon as the victory banquet is over. Maxi's heart raced at the news. At this pace, he'll be home in 10 days. Ruth scratched the back of his head. I doubt he wants to stay at the royal palace any longer than necessary. If there's no urgent business, he's not one to indulge the king. Ulysses nodded earnestly. Lord Rifton must be worried about Anatole's safety. If there are werewolves around, it's dangerous. Hearing the mention of werewolves, Maxi hurriedly excused herself. I see. Thank you for the update. I need to visit the forge now. As she left, Ruth called after her teasingly, no need to see me out, my lady. I know how busy you are. Maxi startled and replied quickly, I'm going. The 2 guards followed her, shouting, wait for us, my lady. Walking through the hallways, Maxi clutched the letter tightly, feeling the warmth from Rifton's words seep into her hands. She paused briefly, holding the letter to her chest. Somehow, the harshness of Ruth's teasing doesn't seem so bad anymore. This letter, it soothes me. The next morning in the library, Maxi grew frustrated as Ruth, yet again, used it as his makeshift bedroom. He sprawled across a chair while reviewing expense ledgers, grumbling non-stop about various expenditures. Soap and scented oil? He scoffed. You think the soldiers need such luxuries? They'll stink of flowers, and then they'll all walk around with sour faces. Just buy enough for yourself, my lady. I'll add some practical items to the list. Maxi noticed him writing something and squinted to read it. Just Teraham? Wait, that's a book. You can't use the castle's budget to buy books for yourself. They're far too expensive. Ruth waved dismissively. Books are priceless treasures, my lady. Besides, these aren't for me, they're for the library. Anyone can read them as they please. Ruth responded shamelessly. My tower is already packed with research materials, and a library is a cradle of knowledge. So I'm just resting in its embrace. I'm as quiet as a book, I promise. Maxi's temper flared. Why, you already have a tall tower to yourself, and now you're hogging the library too? No, I refuse to approve this. Alt text. But I'm the castle mage, Ruth argued. Expanding my knowledge is beneficial to Anatole. Maxi crossed her arms. I know you need resources, but those books aren't even about magic. Ruth tilted his head. How do you know that? Blushing, Maxi stammered. Because I spent 22 years buried in a library too. I know the works of sages like Gerard Barkham. And you're the one who said we need to prioritize spending on roads, so we can't splurge on luxuries like this. Ruth suddenly raised his voice, leaving Maxi frozen in place. What? My lady wants her future child with Lord Rifton to be an uneducated brute who only knows how to swing a sword. Maxi's face turned bright red as she stammered. Child? What are you talking about? Ruth, unfazed, continued nonchalantly. It's only natural for a married couple to have children. Don't you want to raise yours to be intelligent and knowledgeable? The image of a chubby, adorable child, a miniature version of Rifton, suddenly popped into Maxi's mind, making her blush even harder. Meanwhile, Ruth, sensing his advantage, quickly bent down to pick up a note from the floor. Holding it up triumphantly, he added, knowledge is more valuable than gold, my lady. It's the greatest legacy you can leave to your child. Ruth's unwavering gaze made it nearly impossible for Maxi to argue. I don't even have a child yet, she protested. Exactly, Ruth countered. By the time you do, it'll be too late. Children need knowledge to grow properly. In the dimly lit kitchen, the scent of fresh blood mingled with a metallic tang, creating a tense atmosphere. A sharp, blood-streaked knife gleamed as it was raised high in the air, the wielder's face cold and emotionless. With a loud thunk, the knife came down, splitting the fish cleanly in half. The head chef, sweating nervously, stammered, Please, sir, let me handle that." But Yuli's, standing tall and brimming with energy, turned to him with a cheerful grin. "It's fine. Sooner or later, we'll all have to experience what it's like to take a life," he declared, as if this were a profound truth. Another loud chop echoed, and the staff behind him trembled. "He's treating that fish like it's some kind of monster," someone muttered. Meanwhile, Maxi sat nearby like a statue, overwhelmed and utterly disheartened. Rodrigo had told her earlier that the trainee knights had gone fishing at dawn to prepare a meal for her. She never imagined things would turn out like this. "Scenes like this won't help the lady's appetite," the head chef pleaded. "Nonsense," Ulysse countered. "The lady has witnessed blood raining down from giants. She's the wife of Lord Rifton, the bravest knight in the land." He turned to Maxi with a bright smile. "Isn't that right, my lady?" Maxi, flustered and pale, nodded weakly. Why yes. Oh, of course." Meanwhile, Garo stepped up, holding another fish. "I've drained all the blood from this one. Your turn to chop." Ulysse took it eagerly. "I'll cut it into perfect pieces." Even as her face turned green, Maxi forced herself to keep her composure, unwilling to lose face. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ulysse raised his arms in triumph. "Done. We're finished." The head chef quickly shooed the knights away. "Leave the cooking to us. Light the fires, everyone." Seated at the dining table, Ulysse and Garo tried their best to make conversation with Maxi. "My lady," Ulysse said excitedly, "while we wait, could you tell us more about the werewolf encounter?" Maxi hesitated, her mind racing. She thought of the knight's early morning efforts to catch fish for her and felt she couldn't refuse. But internally, she wanted to scream, Oh no! Do I have to make up another story? She opened her mouth tentatively. Well. Both knights leaned in with sparkling eyes, their full attention on her. Maxi couldn't help but notice how they looked like eager puppies, and she stifled a giggle. Clearing her throat, she began to speak, more confidently this time. To her surprise, she found herself enjoying the conversation. She had never imagined she could speak so openly and happily with others. Eventually, the food arrived, a dish prepared with the fish the knights had caught that morning and cooked to perfection by the head chef. As the steam rose from the plate, carrying a mouth-watering aroma, Maxi cut a small piece and brought it to her mouth. The fish was soft, rich, and melted on her tongue. "It's delicious," she exclaimed. The chef had mentioned that ori fish, caught from crystal-clear mountain streams, were prized for their tender, flavorful meat. It lacked the usual fishy smell and seemed to dissolve into pure bliss. Yuli's beamed. "If you like it, my lady, we'll catch more next time. Autumn is the best season for ori fish." Maxi smiled warmly. I'd like that very much." She felt her walls slowly crumbling, growing closer to the people of Anatole day by day. Morning gave way to afternoon, then to evening, and so the days passed. Eventually, the grand hall of Anatole Castle stood completed, decorated in resplendent beauty. Maxi's eyes gleamed as she gazed upon the transformation. The chandeliers, oil paintings, and statues were all meticulously chosen, turning the space into something truly magnificent. The castle's staff buzzed with excitement, marveling at the makeover. Maxi ran her hand over the shimmering glass windows, her thoughts swirling. Would Rifton approve of these changes? She dearly hoped so. Gratitude swelled within her toward the merchant Adon, whose efforts had helped her make the castle so beautiful. A sudden voice startled her. "This place is barely recognizable. Lord Rifton will surely be amazed when he returns." Maxi gasped and turned to find Ruth standing nearby. Flustered, she stammered, Do you think he'll like it?" Ruth shrugged indifferently. "Why wouldn't he? He's the one who asked you to decorate the castle." Maxi huffed, crossing her arms. "See, could you just say something nice for once? You won't kill you, will it?" Ruth sighed dramatically before mustering a bland, exaggerated tone. "Oh wow! This castle is so dazzlingly gorgeous. The brilliance of its grandeur is blinding me. Is this the temple of a goddess, perhaps? Truly, the Lady of Anatole has unmatched taste." His over-the-top delivery left Maxi scowling in exasperation. This isn't a joke, Ruth." Chuckling, Ruth casually stretched. "Well, anyway, I've finished the elixir for the oak tree. Care to try it out?" Maxi's irritation was quickly replaced by eagerness. Really? Let's do it now." In the castle's courtyard, the staff gathered in anticipation, their whispers filled with excitement as Ruth approached the withered oak tree. With a solemn air, he placed his hand on the trunk. Maxi watched closely, her heart pounding with curiosity. Ruth suddenly raised a hand to the sky and exclaimed dramatically, "O great Mother Earth, show mercy upon us. Extend your divine hand to heal this humble servant with your boundless power." Maxi's jaw dropped. What is he doing? Is magic always this theatrical? She recalled Ruth's previous casual remarks about how trees and humans were no different, both only seemed lifeless but could be revived with mana. He hadn't seemed the type to chant elaborate invocations, unlike the high priests she'd known as a child. Turning to the maids, Maxi noticed their rapt attention and excitement. Then it dawned on her. Ruth was putting on this performance for the staff. If the servants saw Maxi's failed efforts to revive the tree, they'd likely accept the need to chop it down. That's why he's being so extra, Maxi realized, a soft giggle escaping her lips. He's enjoying himself too much. Suddenly, a blue light shimmered into existence, emanating from Ruth's hands. The glowing mana swirled around the oak tree, creating a breathtaking display. Gasps of awe rippled through the crowd as the light sparkled and danced, wrapping the tree in a cocoon of energy. One luminous droplet of mana floated towards Maxi, landing on her skin. Her eyes widened. "What? Did I just absorb it?" Ruth noticed her reaction and smirked. "Seems like you have an affinity for mana, my lady." "Affinity?" she asked, confused. Ruth explained, "The foundation of all magic is controlling mana. Having an affinity means you've met the basic requirement to learn magic. Maxi's heart skipped a beat. Does that mean I could become a mage? The orb of light in Ruth's hands suddenly dissipated as he shrugged. That's just the prerequisite. Being quick and agile might make someone suited for swordsmanship, but that alone doesn't make them a knight. Same goes for magic. I see. Maxi clenched her hands, a flicker of disappointment flashing across her face. Of course, I'm not good enough for something like that. Sensing her deflation, Ruth added nonchalantly, still, it's a rare talent, my lady. What do you mean? I mean, Ruth said with a smirk. It's surprising that someone as hot-headed and dramatic as you, who hates losing, also happens to have an affinity for mana. Maxi flushed bright red, her frustration boiling over. That's not a compliment, Ruth. The mage yawned and stretched, clearly exhausted. I've been working non-stop for days now, my lady. This sleep-deprived man has no energy left to be poetic. Maxi glared at him. And not like you've been working all the time. I see you napping in the library, like it's your personal bedroom. She kicked the base of the oak tree in frustration before blurting, so can we even revive this tree or not? Ruth tilted his head. Hard to say. I infused it with earth-aligned mana, but we'll need to wait until spring to see if it sprouts new leaves. On another day, the castle bustled with activity as everyone scrambled to prepare winter garments for the guards. At the current pace, there was no way they'd finish in time. Should we order the remaining supplies, my lady? Rudy's asked politely. Maxi, aware of the tight schedule, frowned. Everyone had poured so much effort into the castle renovations that time was running short. How many more do we need? She asked. About half the total, Rudy's estimated. We'll try to complete the rest ourselves. Maxi nodded, scribbling on a sheet of paper. All right, let's do that. She was about to check the kitchen when a hurried voice called out, my lady. The steward came running, his face pale. There's a problem outside the walls. A group of strangers has gathered at the gate. The inner gates were quickly opened, and Maxi, accompanied by the castle's guards, rode out to investigate. At the scene, a man claiming to be a noble from Livad stood with a group of knights. With Rifton away at the victory celebration, the situation was delicate. If the man truly was a noble and they offended him by denying entry, it could spark a dispute. Even a low-ranking knight could easily overpower several guards. I have to protect Anatole while Rifton is gone, Maxi resolved, her heart pounding. I can't afford to waver now. With Ruth and Sir Oberon at her side, she prayed everything would turn out all right. Maxi steeled herself with determination. I am the one protecting Anatole while Rifton is away. I have to be strong. With Ruth and Sir Oberon by my side, we'll make it through this. On the other side, the gate guards were firmly denying entry to the Livad soldiers who failed to present any noble crest or sigil. The leader argued, we told you we lost it. It's your duty to treat guests with respect. The guard began to repeat the refusal when Maxi and Ruth appeared. The intruder turned his sharp gaze to them. Are you the Lord of Anatole? He demanded. Ruth replied calmly, I am but a retainer. He glanced at Maxi and gestured. This is the lady of the castle. Hesitant, Maxi stepped forward. Her heart raced as the man's lips twisted into a sly smirk. Well, an honor to meet you, my lady. I am Rob Mahaz, Lord of Livad. I've come in goodwill to congratulate Anatole's knights on their victory against the monsters. I trust you'll allow us into your city? Maxi swallowed hard and glanced at Ruth for reassurance before forcing herself to answer. I've been informed that you have no proof of identity. We cannot allow anyone of you unknown origin into the city. The man scowled. I lost my crest on the way here. Your priests can confirm our identities once we're inside. Maxi's voice wavered as she replied, Anatole does not welcome guests who cannot prove their identity. This is the Lord's direct order. When you have the proper documents, you may return. His face darkened. I don't understand a word you're saying. Call someone reasonable to speak to me. Maxi felt the invisible weight of his contempt crushing her. Her hands trembled, and her face burned with humiliation. Ruth stepped forward, his voice sharp. You are already speaking with the Lady of Anatole. Watch your tongue. Maxi looked up at Ruth's back, now standing protectively in front of her. He's shielding me, she realized. Gritting her teeth, she clutched the hem of her dress tightly. No, I can't back down. I'm the one in charge here. She took a deep breath and raised her voice. I told you, you until you see can prove why your identity, UW will not be granted entry. The gates will remain closed. The man sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. We've crossed countless monster-infested territories to get here, and you expect us to leave without rest? You're being unreasonable, my lady. Maxi stammered, trying to form a response, but he interrupted her. If you deny us entry again, I'll return with 100 knights and make you regret this insult. She forced herself to respond, though her voice was weak. W without P proof of identity. WEC cannot. Didn't I say your priests can confirm it? The man snapped. Ruth stepped in, his voice cold. Enough of your nonsense. Don't blame us for your carelessness in losing your crest. We can't let 3 armed knights stroll into our city without proof of who they are. The man smirked, his tone mocking. Is Anatole so weak it can't handle 3 knights? Without your lord, it seems you're just cowards hiding behind your walls. Sir Oberon bristled at the insult, his voice booming. How dare you? Open the gates, Ruth. I'll cut down this arrogant fool myself. Before Ruth could stop him, Oberon was storming toward the gates. Emboldened, the intruders taunted, come on, let's see what you've got. We'll take you all on. Suddenly, a fiery vortex shot toward the gate. Ruth's eyes widened in alarm. Damn it, he cursed, raising his hand to cast a spell. But it was too late. The gate exploded in a shower of stone, the impact shaking the ground. Ruth struggled to stay upright as the structure crumbled. Protect the gate, shouted the guards. Ruth's spell flared, a brilliant white light streaked across the air, forming a shimmering green barrier that enclosed the gate. The intruders hesitated for a moment, but one of them raised his sword and struck the shield. The impact shattered part of the barrier like glass. That's an aura blade, Ruth shouted. He's a high-ranking knight. Oberon replied grimly, leave him to me. With a deafening crash, Oberon leaped from the wall, landing heavily in front of the assailants. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Lady Maxi, find cover, Ruth called urgently. Maxi turned to flee but tripped over a loose stone. Pain shot through her as she fell. Oh no, I can't move. Meanwhile, Oberon and the guards clashed with the attackers, blades ringing out. One guard's sword flew from his grasp, embedding itself into the ground. The intruder grinned wickedly, raising his weapon to deliver a killing blow. But his arm froze mid-swing. The Remdragon Knights have returned, a voice cried. Maxi's heart leapt at the sight of a white dragon banner on a blue field. Rifton and his knights charged forward, their presence like a raging storm. Rifton's expression was that of a beast ready to destroy anyone who dared threaten his land. So Rifton has returned just in time, as Anatole faced a perilous situation. What will happen next? Don't forget to like and subscribe to Reven Review to catch the next episode.